Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm Alex. I'm an editor of the Under 30 list, and I am here with 3 incredible women today to talk about their journey through Hollywood. You guys have all had massive years this year. Marissa, Wicked was the highest grossing musical adaptation of all time. Keyla, your show, The Studio, swept at the Emmys, including Outstanding Comedy Series. And Anna, XO Kitty, which you star in, was #1 on Netflix when it came out this year. You just wrapped the final season of it. All of this has happened within the last 12 months, which is wild, right? I want to know from each of you guys, where were you guys 12 months ago? What were you doing prior to all of this happening in your lives? Anna, let's start with you.
Also, we don't know if it was the final season. I just want to make
Okay,
clear.
sorry.
We hope
sorry,
it's
sorry.
not.
Third
We'll
season.
see.
Third
it's possible. A year ago to right now, I was going to school. I was starting another semester at UBC in Vancouver, and I was anticipating for season 2 to come out. I was so excited. I feel like we definitely made it bigger and better for the second season. So, yeah, I was hanging out in Vancouver and stressing about midterms.
Keyla, how about you?
Oh my God, feels very Hollywood. I was in Mexico. I was shooting for the first time in a different country, which was kind of crazy.
Totally. And Marissa, how about you?
If I'm remembering right, because this was prior to the film coming out, I was just honestly chilling. I am somebody that needs to be busy all the time. So I think around this time last year, I was doing a lot of artwork. But yeah, I think that's where I was. It's been a minute, but yeah.
I love that. And I think so many people, you guys on stage, so many people in the audience can definitely relate to wanting to be busy all the time. And you guys all started working pretty young. I mean, you guys are still super young, being in, such a position of the spotlight at such a young age. I want to go back, though, to when you first started out this career. It's such an endeavor to take on becoming an actor in today's world. So I want to know from each of you, what was that initial spark? What got you into these rooms in the first place? What was that kind of entryway into Hollywood today? Do you want to start, Anna?
I started acting when I was 12 years old, and it was very unexpected. I didn't know a single thing about film and TV. No one in my family did. And it all kind of happened in a really whirlwind kind of way. I did an audition it was the first time I ever did an audition for film and TV, and it was for a PBS kids show called Odd Squad, and I ended up booking the lead, and I was so confused by everything. I had never even had real lines in an audition before. I was just excited about that. And they called me and said in 4 days, can you move to Toronto? I'm from Vancouver. Can you move to Toronto for 7 months straight and shoot this show? And my mom had to take a leave from work and go with me. And I think I was really lucky to get my foot in the door at the time that I did, because it is such a strange industry, but I feel there's a lot of people at 22, which is how old I am now, who are amazing at what I do. But at 12, there's not only less people that maybe have the skills and capacity to have a profession like that, but also have the means and the resources that I feel very privileged that my family was able to support me in that. My mom retired shortly after and came with me for kind of my whole career and journey up until now. So it definitely helped to have that foundation as a kid. And I feel acting is such a weird job in so many ways, and you can't really learn all of the steps that you need necessarily until you're on set. You can go to theater school and you can practice acting, which is amazing, but that's more about the craft versus the profession and how to handle yourself on set, and even those little tiny things knowing what 10-1 means, which is literally just I have to pee as a code word. Those things of you don't learn those things. And as a kid, I was allowed to not know what I was doing, and I was allowed to ask a lot of questions and be confused and have that space to learn, versus now I feel I see it all the time. As an adult who enters the industry, they're seen as maybe unprofessional or unprepared because they don't know how to hit their mark or they don't know how to do things. But that's so unfair, because you're not being taught that. And if you put me in any other industry right now, I'd be so lost. So all to say, I feel very grateful to have started at 12 and to have had that space to be a clueless kid. I think has really, really helped.
And figured out along the way. Keyla, I hear that you were cutting hair before you started acting. Can you tell me how you went from the barbershop to the big screen?
Oh gosh. I unfortunately did not find success so young. I was not that good starting out. I was actually really, really bad. But I started, I think, when I was around 14.
But that's very young still. Please.
Yeah, true. But it didn't work out then. It wouldn't be until I was 24, so maybe around 10 years later that I truly started getting my foot in the door. So there was a long period in between where I was taking classes and trying to make it work. And so one of the things that happened in between then was barbering. My family, that's what they do on both sides. My aunts, my uncles, a lot of my cousins have barbershops. And so I was like, you know what, I can do this meanwhile. And I was doing that very badly for a long time. And it wasn't actually until the pandemic came in, there was like a really big landscape change. And so now self-tape was a big thing. And it was through that I was actually able to start auditioning, because before that, there was such a limited amount of time that casting directors had in a day to audition actors. And so they had a list of, I don't know, maybe like, I wasn't going in the room. So I'm imagining it's like maybe about 40 people, which I didn't make the cut in those 40. And when it turned into self-tapes, now they're seeing 100, And I did make the list of those 100 people that they were able to see. And so I didn't start working until then. And my big break, which I'm so grateful, was Curb Your Enthusiasm. And so I sort of entered the acting world when it was changing in a way. I had COVID protocols, and it's funny, everybody was like, oh, these masks and all these things. It's like, I've never been on here without these. I'm like, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting how long it took, the conditions that I came in, and how it's progressed from then till now. I did not think it was gonna happen this way.
Totally, and I think so many people in this room can relate to that COVID transition in so many of our careers. It was the first time we were in an office or in a company at all. So I think that's such a relatable thing for people under the age of 30 right now. Marissa, I'd love to know from you, what was your entry into this? I know you did local theater for a while, but when did you, you've had a massive big break with Wicked this year. What was that like? How did you kind of get your foot in this door?
Yeah, I grew up doing local community theater. I'm originally from Wisconsin, and so very small town, cute little theater vibes. Started out just for funsies, and I think it was just that, and just looking at the art of acting as fun initially, and then I think by high school is where I was like, hey, I actually really love doing this and want to look at the full craft of it all and really hone into the performance and the little subtleties, whether it's on screen or when to go big on a stage and stuff like that. So then I went to performing arts college, and year after graduating basically is when I had the audition in my inbox for Wicked. Not a lot, but for me, because I'm dramatic, a lot of callbacks in between everything. All virtual, speaking of self-tapes. I did a self-tape, and then the callbacks were all virtual. And then I booked it, and I immediately hung up on that call and called my parents, sobbing, to tell them the news.
No, it's awesome. I want to know especially with this massive production you were in, with John Chu directing, Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey, so many legends in Hollywood right now. What are some things that you learned from them, especially as this is one of your first big projects? What were some lessons that they gave to you, or bits of advice that you feel really helped you succeed throughout the production?
Yeah, it was definitely intimidating going in because, of course, my coworkers are some of the most talented people ever to exist, I think. And this is my first big project ever, so definitely intimidating going in. But everybody was so welcoming coming in, so it made my job as an actor just that, is all I had to do really was focus on acting. But yeah, any advice that they gave me, I think I really do get in my head a lot, and Cynthia's really good at clocking that, and so it was a lot of just her telling me, you can just be. And it's so simple, but it's so true. Sometimes I need to remind myself just to take a breath in between everything, maybe a few deep breaths in between everything. But yeah, that's helped me a lot.
Totally. And Keyla, for you, you've also worked with some major people in Hollywood, Larry David, Quinta Brunson, the list goes on. What are some bits of advice that they give you from the comedy side of things? Because I know that kind of sector of the industry was not where you entered in. So what did they tell you in order to help you succeed?
It's very interesting. I'm not very good at sort of asking for advice or putting myself in those situations. And so I'm very good at observing. And I think in that way, I've gotten advice, right, through observing how they work and how they operate and they move. And I think something that I've seen throughout almost every set that makes a scene very successful is sort of how you were saying, being, but also open and allowing, sort of the scene to take shape and not being married to your choices, truly being present and open, especially in comedy. I think when you're doing improv and all of these things, there has to be a level of openness, truly, to be able to allow the scene to go anywhere. And I've noticed that, with Kiki and Susan and everybody, these comedy giants have a high level of openness and awareness to sort of take the scene anywhere. And I think that's a big, big lesson that I've taken with me.
Yeah, and I think that again is like so relevant regardless of what industry you're in. Anna, I want to talk to you about, similar to what you were saying, Keyla, of like watching a scene take shape or like allowing it to, a storyline in general, as you've been playing, the same character for so many years at this point, and obviously the creator of To All the Boys franchise, which turned into Exo Kitty, Jenny Han, has had like a massive year with, her other show as well, Summer I Turned Pretty. What have you learned from her or other people on those sets that have helped you understand how to create a storyline or a story arc?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very, very grateful to still be in this universe, and I never would have believed that so many years ago. Like the original audition, I was 13 when it like came in probably my mom's inbox, not even mine. And now like we're still here in the same journey, which is so cool. And yeah, finding Kitty again was a really interesting thing because I had played her for many years and like knew her, but I knew her as a kid. It was kind of like meeting an old friend and being like, I remember you, but like, who are you now? Let's find out, and figuring out what that arc looked like. And I was so lucky to work with such a wonderful cast in the original To All the Boys I've loved before. They were so wonderful, and it was a really pivotal time for me. I was just finishing 8th grade, and it was the summer before grade 9, which is always like a weird time of life no matter what. High school is not always a fun place to be. It was not always fun for me, that to have like people to just feel comfortable with and feel like I could be myself and to learn and explore and like grow up with so many amazing role models. I like look back now on that time of those movies and like they definitely helped shape me, and I'm very grateful for those people.
Yeah, so much has changed in the world, like we've been talking about the last couple of years, especially in the entertainment industry with things like streaming coming into play, social media playing such a large aspect in like, finding roles or sharing your stories, sharing the projects that you're working on, new technologies like AI coming into, the fold as well. How are you guys each thinking about these different factors of sharing your work with audiences? Like, let's start with social media. Marissa, can you tell me a little bit about how you are engaging with your audiences there and like what that kind of relationship has meant for you in your career?
Yeah, I think social media can be a tool in a lot of ways. Like, my Instagram and my TikTok are very different things. Instagram I use mainly for sharing resources and mutual aid because I think it's important, at least to me, when I do have a platform, making sure to use my voice and share resources with others so that they can also be impactful. So I think in terms of just my own work that I do or whatever activism I'm trying to do, that's what I use my Instagram for. TikTok is silly goofy for me. I think that's where I connect with fans and whoever else the most because it truly is just me being myself. I don't look at that as part of the work itself. I may occasionally share like a little skit, or it's been a while, but sometimes maybe a short film on there or part of a short film. But for the most part, I like to keep that side silly while also connecting with whatever audience is out there and make a safe space for the demographic of people that I know are my audience.
Mm-hmm. Keyla, how about you? How have those relationships with your like social media followers varied from the audiences that you're meeting as a an actor?
I started in the beginning. I just be honest, there was a lot of bullying. They bullied me online. And so for a while, I did not use it at all. I was very afraid. Mm-hmm. I felt like if I was posting, I was giving people a place to be negative. And I was really afraid. And, through the course of the years, I never imagined that I was going to be able to have so many amazing opportunities that sort of pushed me to posting a little bit more. There was like things that I was very excited for, whether it was a campaign or a trailer or something that I wanted to share that I was proud of being in. And sort of that got me through the hump. And now the next thing I'm trying to figure out is I've noticed that the content that I gravitate to is authenticity. Like I love watching real people, real things. I just, it's what I gravitate to. And so finding a way for me to be authentic, to show myself on social media, on any platform is still something that I'm trying to figure out, you know? But it's been very sort of interesting and fun kind of navigating that space.
Do you feel a pressure to be active on it, knowing that, like, obviously it hasn't always been, and I'd love to know this from all of you guys, like, what's the pressure like, especially as it's becoming such an important part of, like I was saying, sharing stories today?
Yeah, there's huge pressure. But I think in the beginning I saw it as negative, and I think the more that I get to be in this industry, the more that I'm realizing that's like a privilege in a way, where I'm so lucky to have things to post about, to even have pressure. That makes sense. It's like problems that I did not have a while ago, and so now I'm like, this is good pressure. This is exciting. You know, like, okay, like figure out how to use this so you can. There's a lot. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of brand deals and a lot of money. So that's a little push. I'm like, let's figure this out.
Anna, how are you thinking about that? Speaking of those brand deals, just like building a personal brand there separate from the characters that you play.
Social media is definitely like a really interesting tool, like you were saying. I feel like what's interesting now is like no matter what industry you're in, I feel like you also need to be good at social media because it's like such a wonderful tool and a place to reach people. I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself. I'm like a professional overthinker and think about way too much, and I'll get really in my head about social media that I feel like in some ways when I post I'm like putting up a billboard. Like I'm a company, I'm a business, and I'm putting up a billboard, and that would normally take like many days, I assume, and like meetings and drafts and people you would talk to, versus like I'm alone in my room being like, does this photo represent everything I want in my career, which is a lot, and like I know I should not be thinking it that way, but I also believe in like part of what I'm saying is true, that this is like your space and the one place also for me that like I can control. That as an actor, like you don't have control over what your character is always saying or their morals or what they're wearing or whatever, but this is my space to show you who I am. So I definitely try and think of it in a way of like, what do I want to give off and how much of myself am I showing? And I agree that authenticity always does well and like is always something I strive for, but I do get in my head a lot because I also like never aim to be a content creator. I think there's a lot of joy in it, and like you said, like in a business sense, it's a wonderful thing sometimes, and it's a great way to like stay working when you're not on set. Like I was really lucky to do that. Like while I was going to school, I was like, I still want to work and I still want to push forward. So doing brand things and working with social was great, but it is a weird balance because I want it to always be supporting acting and what I actually am like really striving for.
Two other new advances in the industry have been obviously streaming, which both of you guys have major shows on streaming networks, and AI, which Marissa, I know that you have many thoughts on like what this means for the future of the industry. Let's start with streaming. How has that changed the projects that you're auditioning for, the way that you guys work, and like where you see this going in the future of Hollywood? You want to start, Anna?
Yeah, I think streaming definitely. I mean, it's changed like the landscape in general. I feel like it reaches so many people. Like you can watch my show at like the push of a button in so many different corners of the world, and it's reaching people that it might not have in the past. I think that's also allowed a space for more diverse content and for these networks to be kind of taking those risks and like doing different things because there's something for everyone now, and you can watch it on your own time, and that's really cool. I also think it's like changing the rules. Like there's kind of no rule book anymore. Like there's so many different ways you can enter our industry, and like how something can go viral or get big is like, it's not just you have to be a blockbuster for it to be seen by a lot of people. And that's like really cool and really exciting, but I also think we are losing some of the magic of like going to a theater all the time. Like I literally watched Wicked in theaters multiple times because I loved it so much, and it has such a different experience. Like I was like sobbing with my friends watching, and you leave and you're like, I'm changed. Like I feel like we all have had that happen. And when you're like watching on the bus with your headphones like on a phone, you're not getting like that same impact. So I think streaming has like it has changed a lot of things, and like I'm interested to see what happens next.
Keyla, how about for you? How has it shaped and like shifted your own career?
I will be honest, I was not working prior to streaming taking over.
Yeah.
But what I hear was it was like network, right? And there was a lot less opportunities. And so I'm very grateful for streaming just because now there is a lot more opportunities, right? Within network has maybe like 3 slots for primetime shows that they have, or now streaming has hundreds and hundreds of shows, which means more job opportunities, more auditions, and that way it's been really nice. But it is interesting, and I don't really have a reference for anything else other than this. I love streaming.
Yeah, no, 100%. But speaking though of like those more and more opportunities, obviously with AI coming to the forefront here across many, many different categories of the workplace, there are concerns about that taking away jobs. Marissa, what are some thoughts you have about like how AI is coming into Hollywood? Where are you kind of seeing this going in the future?
Yeah, I don't love AI, if I'm being completely honest. I do think it's concerning when, one, like there was a whole strike for that already, for actors fighting to not have their likeness taken, and now we're seeing things like AI actresses. I do think it's scary when acting is a craft that has quite literally been, people have worked on for centuries. And when you take something like AI, which is, as should we remember, artificial intelligence, and thus, yes, taking away jobs from real people and real actors. I think it's scary, and it is not my favorite thing in the world, for sure, yeah.
On the other note of things, though, like of course there are concerns with it, but what are you guys excited about for the future? Obviously, a lot of these technologies, while maybe we need some checks and balances on things, are also creating a lot more opportunity, like you guys have been talking about, or just changes in the industry. I'd love to know from each of you, just very briefly, what's one thing you're excited about within the next 5 years in Hollywood?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I think thinking about 5 years ago, what I wouldn't have been able to predict has happened so far always intrigues me. I truly believe I cannot even make up what is going to be in our future, which is scary, of course, because unknown is always going to come with its discomfort, but it's also really intriguing and could be really positive. And I think I try and stay in that open mindset of I literally have no idea. And you couldn't have told all of us 10 years ago what we're doing now and what kind of things have advanced, and we're pushing their limits all the time. So I'm just very, very intrigued and excited to see what could happen, because I don't think I can picture it.
Keyla, what are you excited about?
I mean, all of it, I think, sort of in a way. It feels like there's been so many shifts in the acting industry within it felt like COVID and streaming and now AI, and they've all sort of brought huge change that I would have never been able to predict or sort of see, right? So if you would have asked me 5 years about streaming and COVID protocols for a while and how that changed, I'm I have no idea. And so it's sort of the same thing now. I have no idea how it's going to be in 5 years, but I hope I'm still around. I hope I'm still working enough to find out.
And how about you, Marissa? Anything you're excited about within Hollywood, your own career?
Yeah, I'm excited, and I'm hopeful for hopefully more diversity within the industry across the board, whether that's seeing more disabled actors on screen, not just myself, but I have a handful of super talented disabled peers within this industry, so I'd definitely love to see a lot more of that. And I would also love to see more stories, kind of like Wicked, that challenge viewpoints and really make people think about things like goodness and wickedness, or just having a challenging conversation where people may not think of a particular perspective, then after leaving a film or ending or binging, what have you, a TV series, leave with a totally different perspective. I'm excited to hopefully see some of that in the future.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining me. Thank you guys for listening in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.